Welcome to the AZ Political Podcast. I'm Jim Sharp, and headline number one, I knew she couldn't resist ever since it was announced that Donald Trump would hold a rally in Tucson at the Linda Ronstadt Music Hall. I've been waiting for the 11-time Grammy winner to say something, and she did. Quote, "It saddens me to see the former president bring his hate show to Tucson." Maybe she can take some solace in the fact that the music hall only has fewer than 2,300 seats, so it won't be a rally that he's going to be talking a lot about afterwards. Headline number two, Arizona Secretary of State Adrian Fontes said during a House Administration Committee hearing in Washington that more funding is needed to improve election security, replace aging machines, hire personnel, and upgrade voter registration systems. And headline number three, we have yet to learn when the next presidential or vice presidential candidate will come to Arizona, but we know it's coming. Probably several more of these visits. One thing, though, we're not sure of is coming is a second debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. So stay tuned. All right, let's get to my guest this week on AZ Political Podcast, Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tom Horne. Welcome.
It's great to be with you, Jim.
So this is your second go around as Superintendent of Public Instruction. Right. And for those who don't know, Tom Horne held that office from 2003 to 2011.
Correct.
Then you became the Attorney General for the state.
Correct.
And now you've returned to this office.
Right. I took a little time out to go back to the private practice of law because public office doesn't pay very much. So I had to get my bank balance back in balance. So
superintendents don't make a whole lot more than teachers either, is what you're saying. Right?
No. And Arizona is the worst paid superintendent of the 50 states.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So I guess.
So when I announced I was running, my friends came to me and they said, "Tom, you're crazy. It's a huge cut in income from being a lawyer.
Yeah.
And you're Attorney General. You're going backwards." And my response was, the big problems in the schools, I absolutely have to work on that.
And as you and I were talking about before we started taping, you served 24 years on the Paradise Valley School Board?
Right. 10 as its president.
Wow. So
at that time, it was the third largest district in the state.
Yeah. It's still quite a large district, not quite as large as it used to be. Yeah. So I wanted to talk about the politics of education, if you will. And there's, of course, a lot of politics in education, and there's a lot of education in politics, right? That's just how it works. So let's start with those empowerment scholarships. They're known as ESAs. Right. They provide money to the families of individual students to use at private and parochial schools, or money for activities and supplies for homeschooled students. There's been a lot of grumbling, especially from Democrats, about the use of education dollars this way. But since the ESA amount that goes out per student is lower than what a school district would receive for a student attending one of their schools, isn't this actually saving taxpayer money?
It is, yes. The average we give out is $7,400, and in the public schools, the cost is about $13,000.
Okay, so.
And plus,
how
let me say
this possibly be breaking the budget?
Well, it's not. And the other proof of that it's not, is that the entire education budget, including public schools and ESAs, it was $5 million below budget for the state. So no part of education can be contributing to the deficit. And I've said this a number of times, but some public figures are slow learners and they don't get the message.
Hopefully it's not because they were educated in Arizona public schools.
No, they must have been.
By the way. They
must have been from another state.
So what are they talking about when they say, this is this amount over budget? And are they just angry in general that this money's not going to public district schools? Well,
let me just say something. We have families with, say, 3 kids. 2 of them are doing just fine in the neighborhood public school, but one of them's needs are not being met.
Yeah.
So the parents have the ability to send that child to some place where his needs will be met. I don't understand how anybody can be so heartless as to say that family can't do that, except that they're so immersed in ideology that they lose sight of what's in the interest of the students.
I think there is some pushback, especially when it comes to parochial schools, because of this belief in a separation of church and state, and then also there's just a feeling among a lot of people that we have not funded public education as heartily as we should. You actually agree with that last statement.
I totally agreed. My whole adult life, I've been campaigning for more money for the public schools. As a school board member, starting in 1978, believe it or not. Then as a member of the legislature in the late 1990s. I spent almost all my time advocating for more money for public schools. I've always wanted more money for the public schools. But with the ESAs, it doesn't change the amount of money per pupil. If they lose a student to a private school, they lose the money, but they also lose the cost of the education.
Right.
What's important is not the total amount. What's important is the amount per student. Mm-hmm. You could be a big school with a lot of money, but not much money per pupil, or a smaller school without very much money total, but more money per pupil. Well, educationally, the smaller school would be better off. It's the amount per pupil that counts, not the total amount. And so as far as money per pupil goes, the public schools don't lose anything.
We'll stay on the subject of money and schools because it's always a subject, right?
Yeah. Could I add one other thing?
Please.
I went to public school, did well. My 4 kids went to public school, did well. I'm an advocate for public schools, and 90% of my time and energy is helping the public schools raise their academics. But the competition helps the public schools do better. When you have competition, you work harder and smarter than if you're a government monopoly. And as I'll give you an example, in my school district, I used to do the bargaining with the teachers. And one year they said, we want you to eliminate the advanced placement programs that didn't make not enough kids qualified because they're small classes, it's inefficient. And I said, if you do that, you're going to lose all your best students to the charter schools. And that ended the discussion. I never heard it again because the fact that there was competition makes people focus on doing better in delivering education to the students.
I have a third grader who's in what's called self-contained gifted, and I have a 6th grader who's in what's called pull-out gifted. And my adult daughter was in almost all AP classes when she was in high school. And
you gave your kids good genes.
Well, I think it skipped a generation. Let's just be honest. But and my wife was, when she was a classroom teacher, she now is a what's called a teacher on
assignment.
On assignment, right? A TOA. When she was a classroom teacher, she taught gifted. So we believe gifted education is a very, very important component in
3 of my schools, 4 kids were in gifted education.
Okay,
and the one that wasn't is now a very successful lawyer.
Yeah, but it's needed just as much as special ed is needed for the kids who are far behind,
right? Because
they learn differently.
Absolutely. And in fact, they use the special ed terminology. So really gifted kids are called profoundly gifted. Yeah. So does this legislature still have a lot of work to do when it comes to school funding? As I mentioned, my wife's a teacher. She's in her 20th year now of her teaching career. She finally feels now like she's earning an income that's commensurate with her level of education. She has a master's. Not that she wouldn't like more money, but she feels like there's a great need for capital improvements. Is that what we should be focusing on when we're talking about funding schools? Well, we need to do both. We have more teachers leaving, and most of them leave in the first 4 or 5 years. So that's where the salaries are low. We have more teachers leaving than are coming into the classroom. So if we don't do something to turn that around, we're going to end up with 0 teachers. You can imagine what the public reaction to that would be.
Yeah.
So I've told the legislature last year when I gave a State of Education speech, I said, this is a crisis. We need to do 2 things to solve this crisis. Number 1, we have to pay them more. And let me just say in that regard, Matt Gress, a Republican congressman from my district, had a bill to pay each teacher $10,000 more. That would have put us in the top 10 states in the country, and starting salaries would have done a lot to solve the problem. The teachers union, believe it or not, opposed it. And the Democrats opposed it. So it didn't pass.
Why?
Exactly. You'll have to ask them. But it sure puzzles me. And I think if teachers find out that their union opposed a $10,000 raise. I think they would be raising something with the teachers union, but the word hasn't gotten out. So hopefully with your podcast, the word will get out.
Okay.
We need to pass a bill like Matt Gress's bill. Then the second area, when we survey the teachers when they leave the profession, number one reason is salaries. Close second is failure to get sufficient aid from the administration in dealing with discipline.
Right.
So I had a teacher write me that she told a student to do her work. She agrees with our philosophy that every instructional minute is precious, and the student said "F you," but not the letter, the word.
Right.
So she calls the administration. They say, "Use your social emotional learning." Well, that doesn't do any good. It doesn't provide a disincentive to misbehavior. And kids want limits, but if they see one kid get away with it, then the others start to get away with it. And pretty soon it's very difficult to teach the class. So I had a bill last year to give incentives to the administrators to support their teachers on discipline. And the teachers union and the Democrats opposed it again. So teachers need to find out that some of these organizations are not really representing them.
Yeah. My wife, by the way, decided a long time ago that she would not be a part of her district's association or the state association, as the union is known here.
Yeah, one of my daughters decided the same thing.
Yeah. Of course, she's kind of a unicorn. She's the only district public school teacher I know who's a conservative from Massachusetts. So,
Well, I haven't checked this out myself, but I was told that only 20% of the teachers now are in the teachers union.
That's a good question.
They have more classified employees, janitors, secretaries, and so on, than they have teachers in the union. So they're not really representing the teachers' interest.
Interesting. During election season, we see, along with signs for candidates, we see these bond elections for school districts. Could you explain what those are, why districts feel they need that money, and why districts seem to ask for money every election?
Well, some districts ask for bond elections every election, but no district asks for two elections in a row because once they have it, it lasts a long time. But some place or other they're asking for a bond issue. Well, it's the capital needs that you spoke about.
The override. It's what it's called. It's an override.
Oh, an override. Okay, override is different. Override.
Oh, okay. So there's
Yeah, there are two things. There's bond issues. That's for capital, and then override is to exceed the normal amount per pupil that's spent in order to deliver a better education.
Okay. So is this just another sign that we need more state funding for school districts? Or is this the best way to approach it? Because honestly, as a Republican, I'm sure you believe in small government, and it's hard to find a smaller form of government than your school district. I mean, you have an elected board, and it covers sometimes just small parts of a municipality, or covers a couple of small parts of 2 or 3 different municipalities.
Yeah, but in poor districts, it's harder to get overrides passed because people are more sensitive to their taxes. So I think it'd be better if there was adequate budget from the state and they didn't have to resort to overrides.
Interesting. Tim Walz, the Democrats' vice presidential candidate, has talked a lot about Republicans wanting to ban books in school. You are a Republican, as I just pointed out. Is that what you're trying to do? And where do we draw the line between reading material that informs older students about the way the world really is, while protecting them from what some people consider to be pornography?
Well, people who make these accusations miss an important distinction. There's a distinction between censorship and deciding what's age appropriate. Censorship would be you put someone in jail for trying to sell something in a store, let's say. All Republicans I know are totally against that.
A book, you mean?
But but as far as against censorship in that sense,
right?
But and adults can read whatever they want. Nobody could ever interfere with that. But in the young grades, to throw sexual stuff at them, I think is outrageous. And if you'd seen some of these books, there's a book called It's Perfectly Normal that has drawings of men having sex with men and boys having sex with boys and men having sex with boys. That does not belong in the school. If somebody wants to buy the book in a bookstore, you can't do anything about it. We have a First Amendment. But the schools have a responsibility to be sure materials are age appropriate. So I think he's way off base when he talks about censorship. No Republican I know is in favor of censorship, but we want materials to be age appropriate. In Florida, they passed a bill that said, don't talk about sex between kindergarten and second grade. And on MSNBC, they refer to that as don't say gay.
Yeah.
It's not don't say gay. We're talking about kindergarten to second grade.
Right.
How perverted can you be to want to be throwing sexual stuff at kids at that age?
Yeah. As a parent, it does certainly make me uncomfortable. And there's actually, there's been a case in our district where a summer reading list contains some stuff that I didn't even, in my personal opinion, I didn't think high schoolers should be reading, but that's me. So who makes these decisions?
The school board, the local school boards.
Okay. And should that rest with them, that decision?
I'd love to have the decision myself, but at least parents know if they don't like what their school board is doing, they can elect a different school board.
You brought it up, sex in school, discussions of sex in school. How about gender issues? This has been something that you were actually in the news for recently here, a lawsuit over
biological boys in girls' bathrooms, showers, and locker
competing
rooms.
In sports, right?
And competing in sports, yeah.
Right.
Well, in sports, it's unbelievably outrageous because Title IX was passed to give girls a chance to compete and to excel in their sports. And it's being perverted now to say, well, you have to treat biological boys who say they're girls the same as girls. So you have girls who've worked very hard. There have been a lot of stories in the paper about this. Girls have worked very hard to make the team or to get a scholarship or to make the Olympics, maybe, if they're really good. And then they're up against a male athlete that they can't compete with, and they're absolutely devastated. And I think that's completely crazy. All the rest of life is men and women do everything together. But sports has been the exception. Why? Because males have a biological advantage over females in sports. And why do that? Imagine if Dennis Rodman joined a women's basketball team.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That would destroy the whole league. I use him because he likes to wear dresses also.
He's been known to. Yeah.
So it makes no sense. And I'll tell you this. If they really make the schools have biological boys and girls bathrooms and showers and locker rooms, parents are going to take their daughters out of those schools, and it's going to hurt public education badly.
I have my own personal beliefs about whether or not a child should transition at all. But if a child has transitioned from one gender to another, from one sex to another, are you okay with it then?
I'm not okay with somebody with male genitalia going to the girls' bathroom, locker room, or showers.
Okay.
I think that's offensive as hell. It's offensive to the girls. It's offensive to their parents. And even Ruth Bader Ginsburg had an opinion dealing with having girls come to military academies, where she said girls have to have some separate facilities to protect their privacy and not to offend them. And so I'm totally against that. I think that's kind of crazy. The polls show that 80% of people agree with me. And Beth Lewis, who's an advocate for this stuff, was quoted in the New Times as saying, "I'm weird for agreeing with 80%. And she's the one that's weird, agreeing with the 20%. But it's a good example of what they call projection, which is somebody has a problem and they project it on other people.
So, not to ask a weird question or get this conversation any weirder, but would you be okay with the other way around if a person with female genitalia decided to use the boys' bathroom?
I got into trouble one time saying, I don't think the boys would mind at all, but some people do mind, so I'm not going to say it anymore.
Okay. All right. anything we didn't cover that it's a burning matter right now when it comes to education,
Sure.
which is going to continue to be a top issue. It doesn't happen to be maybe one of the top 3 issues in this election, but it always is bubbling under.
Well, first of all, let me say that the controversial issues are what the media like to write about or
Sure.
broadcast about because
Right.
people are more interested. I understand that.
Sure.
But 90% of my time and effort and that of the department go into helping the public schools get better academic results. That's what we focus on. I've got 15 initiatives to do that. So I want the public to know, even though we talk about these controversial subjects, that's not what I'm focused on. What I'm focused on is 90% is helping the schools do better academically. And the one surprisingly controversial issue along that line is we need to get cell phones out of the classrooms. How would you like to teach a class where the kids are scrolling on their cell phones?
Yeah.
It's insane. I got a bill passed, or I supported a bill. I won't take credit for getting it passed, but I supported a bill last year to get the cell phones out of the classrooms. The details would be left to the local districts, but generally speaking, kids shouldn't have cell phones in the class unless a valid educational purpose. And it passed the legislature, and the governor vetoed it. And I have referred to that as an irrational and irresponsible veto, because you can't teach kids that are scrolling on their cell phones.
You know, as a parent who has an 11-year-old with a cell phone, which is highly managed, no internet access, we have to whitelist anybody that she texts or calls. I don't want her pulling that out in the classroom.
Right.
I want her to have it for safety reasons. Like if some wires get mixed and my wife doesn't pick her up and I don't pick her up, she's got a phone to use to call. But
well, it doesn't mean she can't have it in her backpack, but she can't have it out in the classroom. And some people say, well, if there's an emergency, they should be able to call home. Well, if there's a school shutdown because of a danger, the first thing they do is they take away the kids' cell phones. Why? They want them listening to instructions. They don't want them all talking on their cell phones and not paying attention to instructions.
Right.
And if they're all using cell phones, it could interfere with the broadband, which the emergencies need. So the emergency situation is actually the opposite of what some people think, that it's needed. You need cell phones to deal with emergencies. If there's a real emergency, now if it's a question of not being picked up, the student should have the cell phone with them, absolutely, but not in the classroom.
Right.
But if you have a serious emergency, you don't want the kids to have cell phones.
Yeah. Certainly don't want them on Instagram or whatever during class time. That's
or
been
getting
shown
bullied.
to be bad for them. Yeah.
You know, it's a big enough problem that they get bullied when they're not in school. You know, give them those 6 hours of freedom from being bullied.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I learned a lot, and I'm married to a teacher. So,
well, glad to be with you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
You bet. Once again, Superintendent of Public Instruction for the state of Arizona, Tom Horne. Thanks for watching the AZ Political Podcast. We'll be back with you next week.
Thanks for watching the AZ Political Podcast with Jim Sharp. Click the box to watch more from KTAR News and tap the button in the middle to subscribe.